Thank you for being here. Yesterday was an extremely sad day for the People's Progressive Party. We lost one of our stalwarts in the person of Shirley Edwards. For those of you who don't know much about the People's Progressive Party, maybe new to the PPP, Shirley Edwards was a member of the People's Progressive Party before I was born, and I'm no spring chicken. She was there along with Cyril Belgrave, Clinton Collymore, who is now ailing, Roger Luncheon. These are some of the members of our party who helped to form and influence many of us in the path that we took. I grew up in this party knowing these names as leaders of our party and people who have attained or who had attained the highest levels in our party and in the parliament. Shirley Edwards served as a member of our central committee. She was elected by the Congress for many, many years. And she also was a member of parliament. And I remember coming to Freedom House in the period when I was probably still in school just after 6E, then going on to do A-levels, and seeing Shirley Edwards and the others struggling in that period when we didn't have freedom in Guyana. And I can vividly recall many of the conversations we had with her, with Cyril Belgrave, who was a bulwark of strength in this party. And how difficult it was for them to be in a political party where APNU, the PNC, had deliberately created the impression was a racist party that hated Afro-Guyanese. And they endured all sorts of abuse. But they had to be very strong people, and they were strong. And they withstood all of the abuse, being called names of every sort. And we see that repeating itself now, again in social media. They're called slaves, slave catchers, almost everything that you could think of, they were called. Roger Luncheon, too. But they served this country well, and they served our party faithfully, and they were part of the reasons why this party is what it is today. A party that still focuses on keeping its word to the people of this country. A party that focuses on making people's concerns their priorities. They were heavily grounded in that philosophy, and they ensure that every successive leader of our party had that philosophy drummed into their heads. And so it's a sad day for us in the PPP. We're losing many of our older leaders, but they are extremely proud that today that more people are seeing the true nature of the People's Progressive Party, and that more people have joined us. It used to be lonely for them, the few Afro-Guyanese leaders we had. Today, there are thousands of members, Afro-Guyanese, who are members of this party, who are among some of its most hardworking activists, who are leading our efforts on the ground to implement an agenda that will change this country for the better. And they must be extremely happy. We celebrate Emancipation Day tomorrow. And as we celebrate the struggles and achievements of our ancestors who were brought from Africa, and the struggles were epic and the achievements many in every area of national development. We also, as we celebrate this, the ancestors overcoming the hardship of slavery, which was the most horrific system ever witnessed in human history. We must focus on what's important for us all as Guyanese, not just Afro-Guyanese. And we're trying to get back in the PPP to the spirit of the 1950s, when the People's Progressive Party was formed in 1950, following from the Political Affairs Committee, which was established in 1946 by Ashton Chase and Cheddi Jagan and others. We had national unity. Burnham was invited to be part of the People's Progressive Party, and we had a unified nation struggling to achieve independence. And then greed, ambition, and external influence caused the split of the party in 1955. And although the split was not along racial lines, ultimately, because of provocation and a lot of it external, our country got divided along racial lines. And for many, many years, the PNC stayed in office through rigged elections. And to do that, they had to say to people, they had to keep a system and a people divided, as Walter Rodney pointed out. They use race to perpetuate that division. Because if people were unified, then they would demand accountability from their government. And so you can be unaccountable if you don't have to go to the electorate to ask for their support and their vote. So that was the biggest tool that they used for decades upon decades to keep our people divided. And we suffered for it as a country, because it took hold in communities and it took on a life of its own. And many people repeat the stereotypes about each other without sometimes even thinking through whether they're true or not. And so now we're working in Guyana to break down those stereotypes. And for that to happen, it requires more people to think for themselves. The groupthink that APNU wanted us to have, and it took place on both sides, is being dismantled by many people, including many young Afro-Guyanese. They're saying that groupthink doesn't help me or our country, and we're fed up of it. And we are capable of using our intellect to think for ourselves and to assess what's good for our country and our families and our communities. And many people have come to the PPP because they say performance matters. It seems as though APNU only around elections remember that people are Afro-Guyanese when they need votes. Then they remember their concerns. Then they talk about youth and empowerment of communities. Between elections, they don't care, even when they're in office, as we've seen in the past. And given their track record of 28 years running Guyana and leaving us below the poorest country in the hemisphere, below Haiti, they didn't have much of a track record before. So they're back at it again. They're back at it again. When we thought it was a spent propaganda tool, ideology, racism, but they just can't help themselves. So you see both the AFC and APNU pushing this line with greater intensity as we get closer to the elections. And that's why they target every person who dares to say, I want a united country, I will choose the political party that I support based on what I think is good for me and my family. They want to force people to go back to groupthink. Never mind, group thinking doesn't help them. So they must ignore the lack of plan, the lack of achievement that APNU has, no credible leadership, but just vote for them blindly because of race once again. And if people dare break out from that mold, then they are upset with them. So they put a group of people to say the vilest things about them. I see what's going on with Joran Wilson now. Someone who dares to say that I'm supporting the People's Progressive Party, who comes to our rally. And it's happening to so many other young influencers and people who dare to freely, in a country where we celebrate free speech, to say, I'm supporting this party for the following reasons, or I want national unity. They believe they can beat people back into submission to using this racist ideology. You're selling out, you're slave, whatever else, back again. In this time when we're celebrating emancipation, our forebears or foreparents, they had to use every bit of intellect to survive the hardship of slavery. To survive the hardship of slavery. And they want people to give up on their intellect back. And you see the ones who are peddling this vile campaign. They have nothing really to offer to anyone. Nothing, absolutely nothing, except abuse. They can't speak about what they stand for because nobody believes them. And so the last week, I've seen a lot of this being peddled and propagated, including by mainstream media, helping, of course, APNU to divide the country along racial lines once again, because many of those people are happy when we're divided. They're happy. It's a perverse thing. It is a weird thing, but some people love this. And many of them are in the media. So Ogunse, again, they rolled him out from somewhere. I don't know where he was. Ogunse and Hines, they come from the WPA. When the WPA meant something to this country, when it was led by Walter Rodney. And after Walter Rodney always spoke of national unity. Walter Rodney collaborated with the PPP in that period. He used to lecture at our party school. He is one of the greatest scholars that we have ever produced. Walter Rodney, even now when you go to Africa, many of the leaders talk to you about Walter Rodney. He lectured at the university there. He led a generation of, or influenced a generation of African leaders. Wrote one of the seminal pieces of work on Africa, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, and that's still being used as a textbook in many universities in Africa. Couldn't find a job at our university because of discrimination under the PNC, and then they killed him. The PNC killed him because he posed a threat to what they stood for, which is division of our country and lack of democracy. They killed him. And that, if you don't understand the mechanics of how they killed him, look at the Commission of Inquiry. Look at the Commission of Inquiry that was held. You will see how they targeted him and then killed him. They killed Father Dar in that period. So this is, these people come from that generation, Nigel Hines and Ogunse. But they are so racist that Walter Rodney if Walter Rodney were to be alive today, he will disassociate himself from them. Because all they do is to try to beat down the young Afro-Guyanese man who is trying to make something of his life. They preach this victim's mentality all the time. So in this week, they had a news story saying African youths have no future. That is Ogunse. Would never say, please go and study because the scholarships are free now, or the training is free. Please go and study. Or why don't, I hope you're applying for a piece of land. Or I hope that you're looking out to find a good job. Or talk to the guys in the street corners to say, you need to build something, get a mortgage and build a home too. Because the opportunities are there. Never will talk to them about that. They have no future. That's a Ogunse. Hines, you heard what he said about Afro-Guyanese. I don't even want to repeat that. The AFC, in the Starbuck News, accused government of oppressing Afro-Guyanese. That's this week. That we're the oppressors and they have to declare war on us. And Nigel Hughes warns against pledging loyalty to PPP for small contracts. Speaking about Afro-Guyanese again, because there's this view that Afro-Guyanese who get contracts, small contracts and contracts generally, that they're selling out to the PPP, not that they're improving their lives. And many of them are using the contracts now to buy a piece of equipment, to start building a home, to buy a vehicle, so to uplift themselves. For them, it's a sellout. They must not take any contract from the PPP. But Nigel Hughes, warns against that, about pledging loyalty to PPP for small contracts. But when they were in office, his wife took the small contracts. She was giving her own company contracts in her ministry. She's signing the check from her company, and then she's signing the payment slip from as minister to her own company. It didn't matter, they were taking the small contracts themselves. You find out of the thousands of young Afro-Guyanese contractors now, and Indo-Guyanese and Amerindians, everybody, they're contractors. But we're talking about Afro-Guyanese today. How many of them had any contract on the APNU? There are thousands upon thousands of people who are working now through many contracts and making money on these contracts. But he's worried that they would pledge loyalty to the PPP because of the contracts. But we've empowered, we see this as empowering people. Of course, we'd love them to vote for the PPP based on performance and their own empowerment. But he now worried they will vote to the PPP because they get small contracts. So they have an obligation to vote for AFC or APNU, in spite of them people not getting any help under them. They were taking it themselves, like Nigel Hughes' wife was doing this. So all week long, we're hearing this assault on Afro-Guyanese, and it will get worse as we get closer to the elections. They're using the trolls online to target people. But people are standing up now. It's not the past any longer. And they're spent force. They have nothing to offer people. They're not going to win the elections. They have nothing to offer people except abuse. They have no credible plan, no track record. They have no leadership, as I said before. From the PNC, this is what you hear too. So I see they have now Dexter Todd carrying the same thing. And Dexter Todd is a Shih Tzu masquerading as a pit bull. And Shih Tzu is a dog. It's a small dog. So don't, I look at their face there. It's not what you think it is. It's a small dog. You know, one of these people put in their pockets and stuff like that. They walk around with it. Well, that's Dexter Todd. So big and strong, suddenly with a pit bull roar or a pit bull bark, he is talking about bring evidence of how they rigged the elections. He is still that they did not try to rig the election, that PPP rigged the elections in 2020. That's the diet he's feeding people now in 2025, when the whole world knows this. They can't even produce their SOPs. Sandy told you about what they did with their SOPs. And just look at people at a meeting that they have, and in such a shameless way, still try to defend something that is indefensible. You are really hoping that people have either, you have to disrespect them to do that, to make that case. And Then the next thing about it again, so it's racism, it's lies about rigging of elections, and they're worried about us rigging the election in the future, and then it is something again to polarize young Afro-Guyanese kids, especially the young people, which is extrajudicial killing. So they're resurrecting all the old stories about extrajudicial killing and then lying and adding numbers to it. Adding numbers to it. So, how many people were killed? Remember, they used to say 1,400. Nigel Liu said 1,400 persons were killed in the PPP term in office. And when asked about it, he said he didn't have the figures. He didn't have figures anywhere, but he knew because he was a prosecutor. That's how he knew. It's a lie. It's a blatant lie if you look at the numbers. But they're helped along by a lot of people too. Look at the Stabroek News. So on the 29th of July, the Stabroek News did an editorial about the killing of Orrin Boston, because all week they saw APNU making that case to polarize the country back again, to get these young kids now who may be coming to the PPP, thinking about coming to the PPP for their own future, to get them to stay away again using the old argument, they kill Afro-Guyanese over there. So Stabroek News now, all week they've been pushing that. The 29th of July did an editorial, killing of Orrin Boston. And you know Orrin Boston, but the policeman who killed someone from the Essequibo Coast, businessman from Dartmouth called Orrin Boston, was sentenced to 25 years in prison on the 10th of July of this year. So just 2 days before Emancipation Day, they brought it up again. And then from the 10th of July to support the APNU narrative, and guess what it was about? It's again about the police and extrajudicial killing and all of that to fit in with the APNU's narrative. But here is what happened. So this policeman acted unlawfully, not in keeping with the standard operating procedures of the police force. He killed the businessman. What happened? This took place in 2021. He was charged by this government for murder. So we can't prevent it from happening, but he was charged for murder. He went before a judge, and the judge, that is what the DPP recommended, the DPP recommended an arm of the state, he be charged for murder. The police instituted the charges. They prosecute him. He went before a judge. The judge on his own, because we have an independent judiciary, sentenced him to 25 years in prison. The system worked. He was charged, and he is facing the consequence now for killing the businessman. His wife sued the government, and she was awarded compensation of over $20 million. So the system worked too, and the state has to pay compensation to the family. You tell me there was a shooting on the seawall on March 16, 2018. 3 persons were killed. As this was under APNU. The same Nigel Liu said he had somebody who saw the police shoot the man. Ask how many persons were charged then for the 3 persons being killed by the seawall. Of course, the answer is none. But they would dare say, use this as an example of extrajudicial killing and not look at how the system works. We didn't condone it. We allowed the system to work. The file went to the DPP. The DPP recommended murder charges be instituted. The murder charges were instituted by the police force. The person was prosecuted, and the judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison. And then the family sued, and they got compensation from the state. That's the difference. But they were supportive now. They're almost bringing back the old narrative. But ignore all that happened in the past under APNU. And there were several other cases that took place under APNU. So if you see the three arguments, extrajudicial killing again, they're going after that. That's all that APNU is speaking about at its meeting, an AFC. That's all. Everything. If you hear one of their meetings, it's the same like everywhere else. Nothing else much about the future, nothing else. That's all. Racism, that's discrimination by the PPP, that's all they're talking about. And corruption. Imagine Nigel Hughes and that gang talking about corruption. So we need to reject this. I want to applaud all of those brave people who have defied all of the abuse, like Shirley Edwards and so many others did for many years. They rose up in this party. They're the highest level, elected at the central committee of our party, and they went into parliament. They persevered in tough times. Now we have large numbers around the country, and it's going to grow. This party will change overwhelmingly. You've seen it. And the people out there should not be bullied. Don't worry with the people who criticize you online. They're not going to make no difference whatsoever. And you know, some of those same people who criticize the others, I've seen them calling us for favors a lot. They just keep calling all the time. The same, they call all the time they want favors. And then they'll go out and say something vile about someone else. You know, they do this all the time. So don't be deterred or don't be demoralized by it. Because I know when you're young, if you're an influencer and then you have a deluge of trolls on your page. And I want all of the other people who are supportive of us to go to their pages and support them. Let's fight this racism once again. Let's get back to the spirit of the 50s when we were unified as a country in the fight again for independence. And go to their pages and come out vocally and support them, because they're fighting for something that we all want that would serve our country best. So I just had to say this because I see what is going on now. Trying to make people feel guilty. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is we've been hearing a lot about young people. And so, what's the vision for young people? To promise someone something is very easy. To actually mean what you promise and to deliver on it is another matter. APNU has shattered any hope of being credible, particularly as it relates to young people. With what they did in the 5 years, young people know now that they are not going to get any help from APNU. They're not going to get any help from APNU. They ignored young people, they lost jobs, everything in those 5 years. Mohammed, his hope of mobilizing young people is, in fact, a lot of people that he's mobilizing is selling an image, and two, that he's been a victim of something. You know, he's appealing to this, he's a victim of some conspiracy by the PPP, which is not true. And two, he believes that if you give people small sums of money, you can mobilize them, which he's doing heavily. What's our approach to a young person? What can they expect of this party? We have consistently laid out this vision for young people, whether they live in the hinterland or on the coast or in riverine areas, whether they're Afro-Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese, Amerindian Guyanese, mixed Guyanese, or any other Guyanese. There is a single vision for young people across our country. We want them to be trained. If they want a skill, the opportunity will be there, and we will pay for it. Any part of the country, for any young person, not just young people, but I'm talking about young people here today. We will pay for it, use all the resources, whatever it costs, because we believe that's investing in the person. So whether you want to become a tractor driver or a mechanic or an excavator driver or an electrician or plumber, we will pay for the training. If you want to work in the oil and gas industry too, there are some specific skills that need certification, we will pay for those. If you're in IT development, we'll do the same thing. Then there are people who are academically aligned. If you want to do your degree at any level, first degree, second degree, or a doctorate, we will pay for the training too. We will upgrade people who have already been trained and working in the public sector. They can look forward to opportunities for upskilling. So, big investment in education. And we have credibility in doing this because we moved the budget from 53 billion to 185 billion per year in just 5 years. And we have already implemented the things what he said we will do, free university, paying for tuition, etc., scholarships. So we are coming with a strong track record of doing this. We're also expanding the opportunities in other areas. So if you're in Region 10 now, or you're in the deepest part of Guyana, in any of those Amerindian villages now, the 240-something villages deep in the interior, the free Wi-Fi that is in these communities, we put high-speed internet, would allow them to do university education right from those villages. So they are not excluded from upgrading themselves. From the Amerindian communities, there are tons of people who are brought out to train for the health sector, or for the security services, or other areas. We support people coming out from the hinterland through scholarships, etc. So that's what we can offer young people. So if you want to upgrade yourself, there would be a chance to do that. And we're the only party that can credibly promise that. And it's not going to be done on the basis of race or geography. Secondly, what else do we look at? So it is jobs. So when you're trained, you want to find jobs, and better paying jobs. So those who work in the public sector will see improvement all the time. You'll continue to see their benefits improve as well as their salaries. And Those who are looking to private sector employment would find a market because we have a pro-private sector approach, pro-business approach, pro-industry approach. So farming, mining, the hospitality industry, the incentive regimes have been aligned to generate more jobs for young people and better paying jobs. Where we need to do more now in the next term is to ensure those jobs are replacing the part-time jobs, because we put the part-time jobs in many parts of the country as a stopgap to better, more permanent jobs. So like in the hinterland region, in Region 10, in Region 6, Region 2, that's where we have to focus more on investments in those areas. So a young person can find a job and then find better paying jobs and better salaries as they progress or get trained. That's the second thing. We are pushing that. The third issue is housing. We want every young person to own a home. So that means the government would have to work with them to ensure that house lots are prepared, and then we've already made it clear the support for the construction of homes in the next term will be a big part of our manifesto. We have already promised it months ago, so that will be important. So training, education, jobs, housing, recreational and sport facility, a chance to be able to grow and to in these communities. I don't want to belabor the point, but right now we have promised that every ground in the country will be fixed, and we're already halfway down that road. That will just be continued. Help to start families through the taxation system, through owning a vehicle by lowering taxes on vehicles. That's what they can expect. We are looking for a young person now who's going to start off life, that all of these things matter to young people. Recreation, housing, education, jobs, owning a vehicle. That's where we're headed for young people. I can go down a long list. In the development bank that we'd establish, and we're the only party that could credibly put this together in a short period to put up a development bank. There would be support for small and medium scale businesses there, zero interest loans, but we have a window for women and young people, a special window that will give them preferential help in these areas. So that's what we're working towards for young people. These are just some of the things that we're looking to work with young people. So it is, when I look at the other parties, APNU is feeding a diet of discrimination and victimization. And the other side, oh, I'll give you $50,000, come to my meeting, but nothing else. You can't hear a credible vision being articulated by the leader. In fact, I don't even know if he has read what's written in that document they call the manifesto, plagiarized document. I don't think he has read the document. So they don't even know. It's just an election gimmick. So if you're young in this country and you have choices to make, I think the choices are clear. Then looking at costs. So we have outlined clearly. Our activists have gone around. We're doing a lot of house-to-house work with the flyer. And I've seen them plagiarize from our flyer. The flyer has about 30 points where we promise different things for the next 5 years. we spoke about our past. You see this. I showed you this even before, long before all of the manifesto, and not ANOG, what's the other one, WIN or launch their manifesto. And you see some of the promises here. These have been spoken about for the last year or so. And I see them saying, we took these promises from them. The guy couldn't even explain one promise in front of the Umanayana. You remember the media asked him, tell us one thing you do, and he couldn't even mention it. So we're going around now and we're finding out where communities have changed. Like on the East Bank, some of our activists said to me, when we go around, the biggest concern now for people are security lights. They want lights in the community, they want their drains clean, and they want also garbage collected. In the past, it used to be a lot about road and jobs. Now it's because many people are working now, there are better roads and stuff. So they have now transitioned to those things. And we recognize that we didn't get to all of those because we had to build the bigger roads. We're still getting problems now building these roads because they're damaging utility all the time. Every time they go and dig up a road, they break in the water main and leaving people for days without water. So we still have a lot of those issues to contend with. But we recognize this. So I want to assure all of the people that we haven't forgotten about this. It's not as though we don't recognize it. We've been on the ground. That's why months ago we said, when I was on the East Coast doing some whistle-stop meetings, about 20 of them, this is long before the election date was announced. I said to people, we recognize this. We will be coming back to the concrete drains in the community. That's how we'll get a lot of people working to and getting contracts, the same small contract that Nigel Hughes doesn't like. There'll be many, many more to small people across the country, in every community, so they can make money whilst changing their communities. Thousands upon thousands of people will be getting that. So Nigel Hughes, there'll be lots more contract to people to fix these things. 2, we bought already 100,000 lights. We now only received 4,000 of those so far. So by the end of this year, maybe middle next year, you're going to have 100,000 lights in communities. Along the highways already we're putting in the major lights, but in all of the communities across the country. So we recognize that people want lights in the community. Thirdly, so concrete drains, the lights. Thirdly, we've already been investing more in garbage collection. We are buying the compactors. We said in each NDC we'd have to find a site where they can move the garbage. And we've already increased the subvention of each NDC from $5 million to $30 million each, so they can focus more on garbage collection. We're assisting even in the city. So we recognize that. So when people, they go to the homes now canvassing support, our activists, these are the concerns they hear a lot from people. It's not so much like in the past, we want a road, we want jobs, etc. It's more now along these things. And I want to assure you, we're looking at this. In each community also, we're going to have police outposts, already these nice containerized police outposts. And also they would have the security cameras so that to prevent theft and stuff in these communities. So that's why we're aiming, and I want to assure people who have been talking to our activists, maybe many of them are not being able to talk much about this, that if you're looking at this, make sure that you assure people that we recognize we couldn't fix all of these. Many of those things have improved, but we have to get back to them because we were fixing some of the big things, like putting people back to work. 60,000 people are working, more than were working in the past, fixing more of the roads, getting the system, the people, more training going, education going, healthcare, building the hospitals. We have to come back to those things. So I want to assure those. And then people have been asking them about what are you going to do about like cost. So some people want to know how they're going to earn more, and then others about cost. So let me give you a couple of things that we have already spoken of. But when taken together as a package, then you see the dedicated attempt to ensure that people's spending power is increased. The money that they earn, that they can keep more of it, and secondly, they have to spend less on things that they were spending on before. So first of all, about more money in people's pockets. So clearly, as the president pointed out, every person who works for the state at the state sector will see increases. The public servants, that includes our teachers, our nurses, our policemen, firemen, the army people, they will see more benefits. That's benefits increasing, their allowances, as well as their salaries. The pensioners will see their pension increase. Those receiving public assistance will see those increase. People who work on the SIP program or the part-time job will see their stipends increase. The CSOs will see the sum of money they're earning increase that they're earning now. So clearly in the public sector, you're going to have massive increases in earning for people. In the private sector, also, we are going to assist a lot of these sectors. The miners already are getting a lot of help. They'll continue to get the help but in a different way, so they can then keep more of their money. So the miners, people in the fisheries sector, in forestry, in agriculture, will get greater benefits. For example, the tax, say the fishermen, we are planning to assist them with greater input, or the rice farmers. The sugar workers, of course, are going to get increased salaries. But the taxation system would evolve in a way that if you make more money, you are going to keep more of that money. And that is why we made it clear, both for the public servants, like what we did, we doubled the threshold from $65,000 to $130,000. We added a $50,000 a month for overtime, tax-free, and another $50,000 for a second job. The tax benefits are going to be extended to the mining, agriculture, and fisheries sector and the other sectors, but they also are going to get direct input help from the government, as we have always done. So if you get the seed paddy from government, that means you don't have to spend your money on seed paddy. So when you sell the rice or the paddy that you or your crop, you keep more money for yourself. That is all with keeping more money in people's pockets. And I can go down a long list. So every group of Guyanese will start doing this. Those who don't, like right now, there's so many people we are training for work in the hospitality sector. We need about 4,000 or 5,000 Guyanese who will be earning significantly more than they are currently earning, about 5,000. The other hand, what are we doing to remove costs? So first of all, from the 1st of August, President Ali announced this a long time, the tolls are going to be removed. The tolls are, so if you're traveling across the Demerara River, thousands of people every day, they don't have to pay toll anymore. Berbice, the same thing. People commuting across, they don't have to pay any tolls. That's one. Two, we are going to ensure that in the next term, wherever you live, your electricity prices come down. That's a clear case of lowering costs. So that's a big component of cost, the 50% reduction. So even if you live on the Essequibo coast that is not connected to the grid here in Georgetown, they too will also benefit from that, the lower cooking gas. Then hinterland travel and freight. We plan to lower the price there by building more roads, and also, even if necessary, we'd build a commercial arm to the GDF, because we believe people are paying too much to travel to these locations or to ship goods into these locations. Education, we've already made clear we are removing all the costs are from families, or most of the costs from families. Tuition and everything else that we've already done, and then transport grant, school feeding for the kids, etc. So if you don't have to spend your money that you earn, and you're keeping more of it because of lower taxes, and on children's education or health care. So even if the health care would be upgraded across Guyana, so you have to spend less on it, and even if you are, like you need dialysis or cancer, you're going to get help from the government. So lowering their spending on health care, which is sometimes important for some people. Those are two big components of cost. Helping people to build homes too is a major way of keeping so that they would be able, through a mortgage now, maybe even pay less than what they were paying to rent a building. So, and then own their own home. So a lot of that focus is on cost reduction, and this is across the country. Whether you live in Region 1, or you live in Region 8, or in Maracaibo, in Region 5, or everywhere else, or in the Pomeroon River, or Wakapa, all these areas. This is not just a coastal thing. It will be for all Guyana. And we're gonna help people to own. So those kids in those communities too, many want to now do housing. Many who live on in Amerindian communities where the land is communal, they have been reaching out to us and saying, how can I get the help to build too in my community? It's not state land. And so we have to work with them too, because unlike the coast, if you get a plot of land, you own the plot of land, and then you build your own house. There you don't get a title. So they may not be able to go to the bank because they can't pledge the land. So we are working through that to ensure that even people who live, the Amerindian young people, they too can get the help to build homes and own homes and everything else. And they want roads too. We talk a lot about young people. I've met with a group of Amerindians, and they said, are we glad that the network, you're building out a whole network of roads in Region 1, because we now be able to drive our vehicles long stretches, ordinary vehicle like a minibus or a car, which often they can't do. So they're pleased and they want this accelerated. And that could also help reduce cost of living. So these are just some of the things that we are focused on. The others are all over the place. We recognize we still have to do the big transformative things. So the big ports, the electricity grid. This brings me to electricity. Now, we've had a spate of blackouts, and I want to apologize again to people for this. So they told me last week that they needed several 8 hours blackouts. In fact, 2 on the East Coast to remove the utility poles so that the road on the railway embankment between the roundabout at Ogle and Sheriff Street, the 4-lane road, could be completed. They need to remove all of those poles off the track of the road to get the 4-lane. Monday, they did one 8 hours blackout, which affected many people on the East Coast. And I told them to get the word out because it would be 8 hours. That one lasted nearly 12 hours because they had complications moving the poles. So it affected people. And then yesterday they had another 8 hours blackout on the East Coast. And they told me that they only need 2 hours more to complete it. So yesterday, so then they can complete that section of the road. But this represents a major problem for us because we have enough power in the system. We have enough power with the power ship and the other plants. It's just that they have to interrupt power to move these utility poles for the construction activities, and it creates problems for people. They then told me that by the national park, they're widening the road to that road, I think it's Wolford Avenue, and they needed 6 hours blackout there to move the poles. And I said to them, can't you work from midnight, which was supposed to be from last night or so, to the morning so that you can then do that? But once these are removed, they're moved onto permanent concrete poles, and we don't have to touch them back for hopefully for decades, and the system would be more reliable. But it is creating hardship, and I want to urge the people who've been affected to bear with us a bit. It's not like we have a choice. We need the roads, but we also need the power in the system because it's disruptive to many, many people. Now today, they told me they had a shutdown because they had an explosion at Kingston, and that shut down the whole system. And then they had, so I called, I said, power, why when you're powering it up? They said, we have enough power in the system, but it takes about an hour or so to bring up back the whole system from scratch because of that explosion, I think, which blew out some transformer or something there at Kingston. So I want to say to people, the system we are putting in place now, when the gas to energy is completed, a lot of those transmission mains that we have there will be removed onto these high towers. You saw a contract for $422 million awarded US dollars to build those high towers to take the power all the way to the border with Suriname. Then it will go to Parika and Linden on those big steel towers. If you drive, you'll see some of them by Eccles. So it's a modern grid we're building out, that if it's out of the way of the roads and stuff, it's stable, it's a smart grid, and we don't need, if you have an accident, it causes blackout. We're trying to fix this system in a way that would last for the next 50 years into the future. That is what we're trying to do, but it comes with disruption and complication because of how the system was built out in the past. We have to remove it. The same thing happened. The president went down the East Bank. I saw Sarah Joanna Relief, a lot of these areas on the East Bank no water. The contractor there that's working on the road, they just dig up the road and the parapet, break all the mains without nobody. GWI has to go and fix it, and sometimes they take 2 days. The contractors just dig and leave it. Sometimes they even dig the drain, like I saw some of them, digging out the drain in front of people, not even putting a little bridge for them to go in. So we need to do that. We need to repave and widen the old road. And that's the contract we're doing now from about the stadium, about from Diamond all the way to the airport. The road would be widened 8 feet, the old road, and repave, resurface right through. That's a project. But the way they do it is very disruptive to people, the water supply, etc. And then we're building the parallel 4-lane road to the highway. So I want people to understand that a lot of these things might be disruptive now, but we're trying to fix the system definitively. It was easier when we were doing the Ogle bypass because that's fresh area. Nobody was living there, so it wasn't so disruptive. But when you have to work in the middle of communities, often it becomes a problem. And so we're struggling with this, but it's because the system is being built out. And I hope people understand that a few disruptions is not because we want to take down their power or anything of that nature. So those are some things I need to just make sure that people understand, because these are it's not the big concerns they raise any longer. It's these small things that they worry about. The lights being on, it's the water supply, it is the garbage in the yard, it's thing. And those are things that we are cognizant of. As I said before, we had to fix the system. We have a vibrant economy now, which was not so under APNU. We have more people working now. We have more construction activities. We have more people owning homes. We have more people studying. We have more infrastructure that would help people being built, or schools. Our children are going to have better schools. They're going to have more support. Our hospitals are being built. Those were the big things. We now need to come back to the small things. So when I saw on the GPL, I saw government in Kaichor News, MyPaul, government secretly signs deal for Dominican Republic farm. If you look at what the Damara Wave story, you will see that we had an MOU with this company since early 2024. And it is a lot of it is for the supervision of this infrastructure. You want when you build something, a tower like those towers, you want to build them to international standards. You can't get the GPL staff to supervise it. They don't have time. They're busy trying to keep the power on and fixing the old system and some of the transformers that are going out. So you have to get a firm to supervise. And often, a firm to supervise project, they come between 5% of the contract price to 5 to 8% of the contract price. This is lower, significantly lower. And it's a number of things. So this is a company that is well known, great technical capability. And when you look at the cost compared to other supervision costs based on scale of the civil work contract, you don't see it's a small amount. And it was not secretly done. Secretly done. You can't secretly hire somebody, as MyPaul has been pushing. MyPaul been trying hard to talk. They're trying to resurrect this old thing about corruption. Imagine that coming from MyPaul. So all week I saw them at that. This week I saw something. I didn't realize that PNC is so rich. They own nearly $500 million of shares in Republic Bank. It's a rich party. Yeah, Norton, and they sold, like I saw a story, they sold $83 million to a Trinidadian company. I thought, as their article said, that they should have offered this to Guyanese first. If they had it legitimately, I don't know how they got the shares, but I don't want to explore that too much here. But if you're selling your shares, you should offer it to Guyanese first, because you want Guyanese to invest in this company, the Republic Bank, if it's doing well. So they sold it to a Trinidadian company. And then I've had concerns raised by a number of people. Would this resource be paid into the party coffers, or would Norton have about 10 blank checks written for the whole sum? You know, Norton is a very, he has a strong proclivity towards blank checks. I see him talking about corruption too. He has not dealt with that matter as yet. The blank checks that he directed the treasurer of the PNC to sign for him. The Win manifesto. So Win continues to run a campaign based on clever optics, and they're enabled by lots and lots of people. The PPP haters too. So you would have just a picture of a person speaking. So like yesterday, somebody showed me they went to Berbice River. And then what they did is they took 3 boatloads of people from New Amsterdam, and they gather up from, well, they're not New Amsterdam residents, but people leaving New Amsterdam, up the river, what they call a boatcade. And then they took those same people, and then they pick up a few from the different communities they went to, and landed them in every village along the Berbice River, and then took pictures, tight shots, and posted. That's what they're doing. You recall how they photoshopped the crowd in Linden. They photoshopped the people they were there. That was exposed. I think they pulled it off. They had a poster now, because we saw the same people in 4 or 5 places in the poster that they put up. That's what they do. It's like that was a rally for them. So this is to create the impression that they have a groundswell in the Berbice River. That is what it has been done. So I was like I didn't get a chance to look at their manifesto, or what's called a manifesto. But I read the Demerara Wave story about what happened. And so Demerara Wave said they helped the media to get into their manifesto launch. The first thing you recall is that they invited the press, so by invite only. So that's the first thing that's wrong with the invitation. So I thought the Press Association would have been critical of that issue, because only the people who turned up there were the ones who were invited. You don't send out a media advisory and say by invitation only. So clearly it's again they don't want people who will ask the tough questions there in the audience. The next thing is that they promised the media that Azharuddin Mohammed, after his disastrous performance on nomination day, that he'd be available to answer a lot of questions. They then tried to backpedal on this, but this was a promise made to the media. Now, this is what I read from the Marar Waves. When approached after the news conference, based on an assurance by WIN's General Secretary, Odessa Primus, that he was not going anywhere and would be available to answer any other questions, Mr. Mohammed got up abruptly, went downstairs, and entered the building. Disappeared, got away. After she said he will answer questions. This is it. Got up abruptly, went downstairs, disappeared. Didn't want to answer questions. Several media workers expressed concern to WIN officials about the way they were treated. After much lobbying, imagine you have to lobby to get a person who called a press conference to come and speak to you. Mr. Mohammed obliged speaking with representatives of 2 media houses while the others remained locked outside. It tells you a whole story. Just that little piece tells you a whole story. And I don't know if sensible people don't see this. Imagine this man is trying to run a party and he's hiding from answering questions. He can't answer the question. And look at the childish answers he gives. He says that since he was sanctioned, there's a foreign currency shortage in the system. This is what he said. So what is he saying? What is he saying this? He said, since I was sanctioned, the financial system within the bank, heavy shortage of foreign currency, but they wouldn't say this. What does he mean by that? People don't even, I'm reading directly from the story. Asked again to react to the OFAC sanction, he would only say, I don't know about that. Then he said, the money will come from wasteful spending and corruption, cutting wasteful spending and corruption. We heard this before to finance the program. But the one that takes the cake, basically, is Mr. Mohammed also vowed to clamp down on the alleged smuggling of gold to Brazil and Venezuela by an unnamed gold dealer who is close to the governing PPP. When I take office come the 2nd of September, I will ensure that all this gold, taxes must be paid on it and will be exported to the United States of America or Dubai. You have to be a full-fledged lunatic to even utter these words. Imagine you are sanctioned for gold smuggling. The people have a ton of evidence. You're going to face accountability. He said he'll shut down and somebody close to the PPP doing this. How could people not see this? I don't understand. I don't understand how come people can't see this. That's why, why he campaigns. He likes campaigning in the interior too, or go to those villages, because he's getting away from the reporters. He hides from the reporters because they wouldn't follow him into all of the corners, and then they get bullied by Primus and the others, and his people. The moment you expose him to a couple of questions that he hides from, how could this ever, just look at the Marar Wave story. I didn't see it, someone sent it to me because I didn't pay no attention to the press conference. I just saw a clip of somebody asking Primus, what power demand will you target? And she said, did I say that? Actually, she said it. And then she looked at it, her eyes popped, and she dropped her microphone. Disappeared. Imagine that's the presentation of manifest. And they said, oh, we'll complete the gas to energy project. You know what? All of them complete the gas to energy, solar, which we're doing, and the other stuff. Nothing of substance. This brings me to the next point. We have always said to people, I said it here, that Azruddin Mohammed likes to share his misery with the people. He used to laugh at those who got their visas taken away. Let me tell you, in circles, they would have a joke about it. So he called them and say, you got your visa taken away, and laugh. 2 persons said that to me. Literally large numbers of people, quietly, they're ashamed to say, who were associating with him, got their visas taken away. You see with the banks now, we were warning about this. Read the Starbucks News story today about the guy who was fired. And read from GBTI, and read what it says there. Like, people not reading stuff. The OFAC sanction was quite clear. It says financial institutions cannot deal with this man, or else they run the risk of being sanctioned by the US, losing correspondent relations. These are financial institutions. The banks are financial institutions. It says ordinary people run the risk of law enforcement action if they deal with him. How come they're not reading this? Because they have a clever campaign. Oh, we're going to get the sanctions lifted. How? That's every time you ask them. The US ambassador just spoke about it. They're going to get the sanctions lifted. Oh, it's not serious. Well, the people, I want to bet if everyone who is on his list understood what it meant for them personally to join a list that he heads, they're suddenly, when they were supporting him, there was different. Now they're part of a formal organization headed by a US sanctioned individual. The banks have no choice whatsoever, or else they would lose their business with the US. That's the end of the banks. You think any bank here will put the depositors' money or the people money at risk because of a few people, accounts that are associated with the Mohammeds? They have to do this. They have to de-risk themselves. Because when those banks globally say, you have those people here, that's a US sanctioned man, and people who are linked to him, they could suspend their correspondent banking relations. They can't transfer $1 abroad anymore. If they lose that, they lose the bank. What are they going to do? They can't collect money and lend money. Where they're going to invest even the money? So they don't have a choice. That's why the Marar Bank, they said, oh, it's PPP tell the Marar Bank to do it. That's what they do all the time. Make themselves look like they're victimized by the PPP because he's trying to run. That's nothing to do with the PPP. The Marar Bank did it. Then GBTI, today I see Citizen Bank, and I suspect every other bank will follow. So now what has happened is that all of those people, the poor people who join his list, now they would not be able to have a bank account because no other bank will open an account. If you get closed across the system, you can't open a bank account again. How are they going to conduct their business? And they go to the court, and what would they tell the court? Oh, the bank must keep my account so that they can risk losing their correspondent relationship. Which court would say the bank must do that in defiance of international banking rules? So a lot of people now on their list would lose their account. And I feel sad for those people too, because many of them maybe have listened to the nonsense they tell them, oh, it's going to be lifted, the US or it's PPP doing it, and put their names down there. I'm sorry for those people, because now they and their families would be in trouble, and he would laugh at the misery again. You know, notice his sister and brother-in-law, they didn't give up their U.S. citizenship. They're not on his list. They're every day in the media running all kind of commentary, cussing everybody under the sun. But they don't want to run afoul of the U.S. Notice, poor, unsuspecting people now would face the consequences again. This guy loves to include others in his misery. That's what he's been doing, to hide the criminality of this team Mohammed. To hide their criminality, that's what he's been doing. I'm not even going to deal with their thing about plagiarizing the manifesto. You can't even read the manifesto that they wrote. I'm not even going to deal with that. I got called some people in the market. Some ladies, you went to a market and then posted their pictures. The lady said, can't you get the man to take down our picture? We just selling in the market, and he come here and he take a picture and posted our picture. We don't support this man. He keep posting our pictures, just dropping on unsuspecting people everywhere, take their pictures. You know, like when you go, like a lot of people would ask me, would you put it on the page so I can get it, right? In his case, they're running. They don't want the picture on his page. He goes to places where people are standing, takes out their picture, put it. And they're afraid to come out because they said he'd send his goons to beat them up or something. They're afraid. They're afraid of it. So they're calling me, a lot of the market people and stuff like that, when he goes, he goes to the market and a person stand up there next to him and then they take a picture, put it up. This is what's going on. My friends from the APNU been sharing a lot of videos. And guess what they're doing? So I said, these are huge crowds APNU getting around the country. So they share. And then I realized it's the Jamaica Labour Party videos they're sharing in all green, right? So, and people are commenting under this thing, this is a good crowd and stuff. Check it online. I don't know if it's my algorithms that's set. So I scroll and I see a lot of the Jamaica Labour Party thing popping up. And I suspect it's APNU supporters sharing it. So I didn't even know. I said there's a huge crowd because Jamaica looks almost like Guyana. So I'm saying there's a huge crowd APNU got here. Where did they get this stuff from? Because it's all green and people are waving stuff. And they've been doing this. They're doing this deliberately, so it pops up everywhere to create this sense. When they hear three persons in a meeting, they share, instead of that meeting, they share the Jamaica Labour Party video for a meeting in one of the constituencies there. Check it out. See if you don't find some of those videos popping up. I've seen a lot of that popping up. I think I plan to go through in great detail some of the manifesto, or the promises that the parties are making, but it doesn't make sense. When I look at it, it really doesn't make sense to do it because it has nothing that you can really. It's just like what I said before, is just trying to outpromise the other parties. Everybody trying to outpromise. There's no framework to anything that's being done. I see some polls coming, fake polls also. They're doing fake polls to say how they're winning 20 seats and the PP will win 15 seats or something like that. Mohammed said he just said it at a press conference, he'd be president 2nd of September. He said he getting 65% of the votes at the elections. I don't waste my time being silly things that the people of this country know are silly. So I want to urge all the activists, thank you for the work you're doing across the country. They're in every community, the PPP activists. They're working hard in the sugar belt, in Barbies, and among the rice farmers, the Amerindian communities, in the Afro-Guyanese communities, everywhere. They're there carrying our message, which is about Guyana, bringing people together, working together so that we can change this country. Thank you.
Good afternoon, VP. Tricia Silvers, Guyana Times. You spoke just now about the interruption as it relates to construction affecting communities versus when we don't have persons in those areas living. And on the East Bank, as you know, the US $75.8 million good successor to Mary Road is currently being constructed.
Yes.
And that road is a major road, and it currently, because of it, other roads would have sustained some damages as well. Can you say if there are plans to conduct remedial works in some of the affected communities, which would include Supply, Garden of Eden? They also have some roads affected in Suzaik, considering that, you know, CPL is also coming up.
Wherever they damage the roads, we should fix the roads. But the plan is, so we've already awarded the contract to go the 4-lane now, the Heroes Highway, from Craig. You know, the Craig bypass is open already, right? That's open. So you can come around by Craig. So from Craig to Garden of Eden. And then at Garden of Eden, we'd have to have a 4-lane road connecting back to the main road. The main road I'm calling is the one we use currently. So they would have at Garden of Eden major upgrade now to come back there, because we do this, we can try to connect the roads. Like, I'll come to that in a minute. So that's on the East Bank. So that we may just patch up the roads because there's major work to be conducted. If a road in Garden of Eden, the same road is being damaged now, there'll be major work, a 4-lane road coming out back at Garden of Eden to connect back with the old road. So anywhere where roads are damaged because of movement of vehicles and stuff, in the construction phase, we'll have to fix it back. And the water mains too, that's a big problem up there, because this particular contractor is just digging without any regard for where the mains are. And the president himself went there to look into it because people complain about it. So he was on that corridor between beyond Diamond to Soestdijk to look, because they're working there now about the problems. We had to slow down. They have to widen all the bridges and redo the bridges. But if we do that now, traffic will come to a standstill on the East Bank. So that's why we have to complete the road to Garden of Eden, the 4-lane road, then move some of the traffic there, then do the bridges along the old road, the one that's widening and being done. So it's a lot of work, and it requires lots of people, and I know it affects people every day. When they go up, they're frustrated. But it used to be like that, and now, like from Diamond coming in, now with the bypass and the Heroes Highway, it becomes easier. So I want to say to people, bear with us a little bit more, and then eventually all of these things you wouldn't have this disruption anymore. And you'd have nicer communities too. Because every time the 4-lane or a major road comes through, we're going to plant trees along the road and do a number of upgrades to those communities too, right along the East Bank. On the East Coast, some people from the agriculture road came to see me because we're doing a 4-lane road, an agriculture road too. And they said they didn't get much notice, and many of them are selling on the road. So they came to Freedom House early in the week. There are about 70 of them. And I said to them, we'll look at it again. So I have to go and meet with them. And then they realized that at BV also, between the railway embankment, I told the engineers we have to do a 4-lane at BV to come connect the railway embankment to the new road, the old road, and at other places, Monrepo, etc. So there are lots of those kinds of things that have to be done that will be a little bit disruptive, but just imagine what will happen, the finished picture in your head. of the East Coast and East Bank. And the same thing is going to happen in Region 6. They just started their 4-lane road from New Amsterdam to Molson. So we'd have some disruption, but eventually you can't avoid it. We need the roads. The utilities were placed there when we never could have afforded these roads, or historically for the last 60 years, that's where the utilities are. We have to move them. So that sort of thing. But I can assure you we'll fix back the roads. That's the idea.
And on infrastructure still, recently with the closure of between Nandi Park and the East Bank just to facilitate works on the new Damara River Bridge, you saw the amount of traffic just for East Bank, not including those coming from the west side. And soon enough, when the bridge is open, that traffic will be diverted onto the Heroes Highway. And during the Secretary of State visit to Guyana, he would have referred to the highway as concussion roads, and you would have committed to resurfacing it. Can you say when that will commence?
Well, the next term, that is clearly on the cards. We have already said that. That will be resurfaced too, but also some of the traffic we'd have to have connector roads back so the traffic could be diffused. And eventually we said the bypass. So right now, with the bridge, we'd have to bring the traffic onto the Heroes Highway, then drive up a bit, and then you can go to the Ogle bypass. In the next term, we hope to bring the traffic from West Coast, so you can come directly over the Heroes Highway, connect to the Ogle bypass, and then you can have a lane coming back for those who want to come back onto the Heroes Highway. So you'd have an overpass over the Heroes Highway. So we've mapped all of this out clearly because of traffic flow. But you know, it's a single term. APNU didn't even want us to build. They said, don't build roads, you can't eat roads. Well, now if we didn't build these roads, or we're not building the roads, where would we have been today? So that's it.
My final question. In light of, it was recently reported that government pays $650 million US to a consultancy firm in the Dominican Republic.
650,000.
Yeah, 650,000
I dealt with
US.
that issue earlier. I spoke about the cost in relation, and you see what it's for. Mm-hmm. It's for supervision of some of the work, the big work. If you look at it, it's a long-term relationship with the company. The MOU was signed since 2024. And also, the cost, the company has experience, and the cost is a fraction of the price if you look at what supervision cost is compared as a percentage of the civil works contract. So we dealt with that. I don't need to belabor the point that the GPL put out already. They dealt with that matter.
Mr. Jagdeo, Dennis Shabal, sort of follow up on the very inter-energy contract. Could you say why was it sole sourced? Could you elaborate on that?
I think they had several proposals from different groups that they considered. So that was it, and this one was the most cost-effective one. And so they had several proposals that they considered. Because I know a lot of people have been submitting proposals to manage the project.
Sir, my substantive questions. One,
yeah, sure.
What's the update with respect to the negotiations with the U.S. for the tariffs, reduced tariffs? And could you say whether several of Guyana's diplomats have been recalled to campaign? And have they been paid for this out of the PPP coffers or the state? And we have heard a lot being said by a number of the opposition parties about the reopening of the ExxonMobil production sharing agreement. As of today, we have not heard the PPP say anything about that on the campaign trail. What's your latest position on that in light of this being a campaign point by your opponents?
So the second one is that a lot of these diplomats, you know, historically, they're political appointees. Diplomats have been there under PNC, APNU, at that level. So a lot of these people came back, and I suspect they're on, you see them around too. Many of them, they're not necessarily campaigning, but maybe one or two of them are on the platform. But it's a normal thing. They come home, campaign time. They're political appointees. They're not like technical people. They're not foreign service staff. Under APNU in India, you had Burnham's son-in-law. You remember Pallard? I think there was one there. He was there, High Commissioner. There were lots of political appointees. The one in Venezuela now, our current ambassador, Venezuela, is another one of Burnham's son-in-law, but he was then there by the PPP. So a lot of these are political appointees, and this is normal around election period. I don't see anything major.
Who pays for their return? The government or the party?
What do you mean return? They come home frequently. They come home frequently. They didn't come back specifically to campaign. I didn't order them to come back to campaign. People plan their own activities. I did not order anyone to come back to campaign. And I'm General Secretary of the party. But people like to be part of the action too. Election time for us is fun time too. You know, we don't make our campaign bitter like the APNU side. I know the embassy. I've been in discussions with, up till last Monday, I think it was, with the USTR, their trade representative, and his team. I haven't gotten the report as yet. I'd have to find out what it is. But there are ongoing discussions. The discussions are ongoing. We had a document from them. We sent up our comments. They're discussing these. Because I just spoke to a member of the staff actually last night from the embassy in Washington, and they met with the U.S. Trade Representative's office earlier this week. I think it was Monday.
So what you're hearing, what are the prospects for a reduction?
We got from the U.S. an understanding of that they understood how the trade surplus with the U.S. came about. They know that it's almost entirely from the export of oil into the U.S. So given that, I think they've approached this matter differently. Let me say, that's all I'm going to say now. Unlike with some other countries, I think they take a harder line. They understood that the surplus is as a result of the oil export. Not any unfair currency practices or protective barriers in Guyana that have led to that situation, which they accuse other countries of. So given that goodwill there and the understanding, I anticipate that we should have a favorable outcome.
Meaning a reduction?
Huh?
Meaning a reduction in the tariff?
Yeah, well, the tariff has not been, it's still a 10%. We're paying a 10%. And every country has to pay 10%.
Right.
They were targeting us for 38%, right? But so we're still at 10%.
So you hopefully you'll stick at the 10%.
Stick at the 10%.
Okay, good. And last question, sir. There is a view in some circles.
Oh, no, there's something about APNU and campaign. What was it?
With respect to...
You asked me a third question. That's two.
Yes.
Something on APNU and campaign.
I seem to have missed that one.
What was it?
What's it?
I missed.
The PSA.
The PSA. Yes. Yes, the renegotiation. Yes. So you said on the campaign trail they are promising renegotiation.
So will.
So APNU has danced around this issue their whole lives, APNU and AFC. They've danced around the issue. So they said, there is a brilliant article written by, it's in the Standard. I don't know who wrote it might be Kiana. And she mentioned that there is a clause in the PSA. And the clause says basically that they have to agree to renegotiation, both parties. Exxon has made it clear they will not agree to renegotiation. And the other clause says that should any change to the agreement impact the company in a fiscal manner, that is in a financial way, the government has to compensate for them, the stability clause. She said, if you ignore those two things, then you're just bullshitting people. And it's true, logical. So none of them have responded credibly to that. One, the question of, in the PSA that APNU AFC signed, they put two things in there, which says, renegotiation can only take place by mutual agreement. Exxon has already said no. So you can't have mutual agreement any longer for renegotiation. So that means unilateral change to the agreement. And if you change unilaterally, there's a stability clause to say it must not affect them adversely. So we have to compensate them. So on one hand, you change it and you say, let's take $10 million more from them. And then you have to turn around and pay them in accordance with the stability clause, the 10 million back. What are they really offering? You should ask Azruddin Mohammed if he even knows what we're talking about. I'm sure he doesn't even know what we're talking about. And why you think APNU is dodging it? They know, so they're saying, oh, we will do a study. What study? We've already made it clear. These two questions have been dealt with. We don't run people around the bush. We have stated our position. We wish we could have renegotiated. We said the contract is lopsided, but they have basically left us with an agreement that you will end up in dispute over. Stop the momentum in the sector. The same momentum that they're hoping will fund their campaign, the promises. Stop the momentum, and then basically you don't, at the end of the day, you can't even succeed, because any international arbitration will say the government voluntarily, willingly sign on to these clauses. Nobody held a gun to their head. That's what APNU and AFC did. So we said, how are we going to get more benefits from this agreement? That's why two things we worked on. The gas to energy project, free gas, which will end up with about net benefit to the country, savings for our people of $350 million US per year. Consumers would save in lower electricity bill, because when the price gets cut to 50% by selling all 300 megawatts. We said we'll get cheap gas price, they will say the cooking gas, and they will save nearly $200 million, in fact more, $200 million per year. That will bring, if we could bring $500 million US more of benefits to our people from that project, then it might not come to the Treasury, but it's going to our people. That's how we got more of this contract, by arguing in opposition. And right the first meeting we had with Exxon, and they said, no, we didn't agree to free gas. We said, well, we're going to have big problems here. You have to supply the gas for free, the first 50 million cubic, and that's going to happen. So that's one. over $500 million of benefits we're bringing through that project to our people, not to government necessarily. And then, on the other hand, we passed local content law, which they were opposed to, which APNU didn't do. And that, again, over 1,000 Guyanese companies are listed there of all sorts. And they, last year or so, they did about 700 million US of business. And that's income. That's not necessarily profits, but income. Of that. That's how we have gotten more from this contract. And then we said, we're going to pass a new PSA. And we did that too. We said the new PSA, now anyone who comes in will have to go through an auction process or these bilateral arrangements that we spoke of with governments. But they would all have to come in under a new fiscal regime which says, instead of 2% royalty, 10% royalty, instead of zero taxes that APNU and AFC give, 10% taxes, and then only 65% instead of 75% should go to cost recovery. We did the contract, it's now there for the future. We said we'll go to auction, we're doing that. We're preparing the seismic to do that. We said we'll change the law, the 1986 law, we did that too. We removed direct charges from the NRF. That's our approach. Which party speaks about those things? None of them. They just, negotiate, renegotiate, and they're lying to the people of the country. Answer those two questions posed by Kiana, I think it was, in her article. Just go and read that article, and then you will get an understanding of how they're dodging the crucial issues. Ask Nigel Hughes or Norton, do you intend, if the Exxon says no, to unilaterally go renegotiate the contract? Ask them that one question. And if yes, how do you deal with the stability clause, which says any change in the agreement, you'll have to compensate them for that? Those two questions will give you all the answers you need. And then you will see who is messing around with the people of this country. We don't do that. We tell them honestly what we can do and what we can't do. And they left us with this useless contract.
Jagdeo, how do you respond to your opponents saying in some circles that your party is basically recirculating people who have benefited from the drainage contracts, etc., at various political meetings to portray an image that you're indeed acquiring a lot of support from the African Guyanese community? For instance, we've seen meetings in Lodge and other places, and people are saying that you're actually circulating these contracted employees to portray that. How do you respond to that?
So if people go to meetings, a lot of these people go in an organic way. We don't have to bus people to meetings, etc. It's quite interesting you will ask me a question like that. What about Azruddin Mohammed? Does he recycle? If we're recycling, what is he doing? It's every village he picks up people and carries them in. I just dealt with that early. What about APNU? APNU brought people for their rally on the East Coast. They brought people from Linden, from Region 6, from Region 5, from almost every region. Look at our Essequibo rally. How many persons you think were recycled up there? You can check the boat and the speedboat. No, but I'm just telling you, that's an organic Essequibo crowd. So, in our case, people go to various meetings. I don't have a problem. If you should look at the interviews done by people. Look at nomination day. They went to several people who were in the crowd. And people speak of their commitment. You ask any person from the other side when they approach, but it's a kind of assault against Afro-Guyanese too. So if 5 Indians, we have people following their rally junkies. And some of them go everywhere there. What now junkies? You don't call them junkies. You call them, what's it? Groupies? Groupies. They go everywhere. They like the fun of it. You don't ask if Indian people are going like to different places. You have some Indian faces pop up. I see them all along. They come to Freedom House this afternoon. They'll be here. And why does this have to happen? Look at our crowds compared to the others. In communities that were traditionally PNC, we have party groups. We got work going on in these communities. It's a disparaging thing to say about our supporters, and that they're contractors and they're being recycled. The same kind of thing they said about the part-time workers. Oh, they're criminals. The CSOs are recycled. If they can't understand that, so why does NAPNU recycle some Indians? If that's the case, no, but I'm looking at it. It's always about the PPP. It is like, oh, they're now recycled people. Afro-Guyanese are recycled people. First they, huh? I think you use the word recycled. Oh. Yeah, well, okay, because first there are all kinds of names and now they're recycled. I love to see these people. They're happy about it. I saw them going around and will go join the meetings everywhere. They come to Cummins Lodge. They go to see the president if he's on the East Coast, and they have one big meeting where the president speaks on the East Coast. The president will speak maybe about 2 or 3 times on the East Coast. They will go there. Like when Norton, they call it a rally at Melanie. The president goes to industry. He speaks at industry. People will go from the neighboring areas to see him and to go to the meeting. We didn't bring from Region 10 or from Region 1 to go there. They're East Coast people. So what's wrong if the guys from the Buxton or BV or Pleasance go to the industry meeting to listen to the president when he's speaking? He's speaking at another meeting. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just wrong to look at these people in that way. It's really wrong to look at people. It doesn't recognize effort and their ability to think.
Good afternoon. Marcel Thomas, the Starbuck News. I'm following up on 2 things, and then I have a substantive question. On the tariffs, you're saying that from feedback that you've gotten from U.S.
So Marcel, what I'm saying is that in the period before we started the discussion on a document, we had a visit to Washington by Minister Ashley Singh. He came back and he said that the USTR and the office, they understand the nature of the surplus, the trade surplus that we have with the United States. Remember, we were pointing this out, that the trade surplus comes about largely because of the export of oil. The US had claimed that the trade surplus, President Trump has said this publicly, that the trade surplus with many countries have been caused by currency manipulation, by protective tariffs, and other measures. So in this case, it's different. They understood that. So when Ashley Singh came, I think I spoke with you. We subsequently received a document that we're discussing. And the idea of the negotiations and discussion is hopefully, given that understanding, that we can reach agreement to keep our tariff at the 10% rate.
That by tomorrow, with the deadline being tomorrow, that we'll continue to hold to the 10%?
Yes,
that
so
is agreed?
I don't know, I've not had, because I'm more on the campaign trail now. So I've not had the report. I know there was a meeting earlier this week. I've not had the report as yet. So I can undertake to find out exactly what took place this week and then look at it. And then it's being dealt with by finance, right? The Ministry of Finance.
Okay, thank you. That's one. And on the inter-energy agreement, why the decision to sign the agreement now, 1 month before elections?
So they
when
have
you
not
said-
signed the agreement.
signed.
They have not signed the agreement. I said the negotiation is still going on. So let me make it clear. Inter-energy agreement has not been signed until now. That there is a negotiation going on. There is a proposal that went to cabinet that spoke of this. But we now need to see that they're actually delivering on what is in the proposal. When a company makes an offer, you look at it, compare it with others, but then you have to discuss and concretize in clear legal language what this is. And that negotiation is still ongoing, and I'm not even sure it will be concluded before the elections. So it has not been signed as yet.
And in that vein, when it is concluded, would it be made public so the people know what
Yes,
they're paying
yes,
for?
definitely they will see the agreement. And what if the negotiation breaks down too? We may have to go back to the drawing table again. So there is that possibility too, which we are hoping would not happen.
And this is on the agreement with Hess that we've signed with Hess. Now that Chevron has taken over, they've bought over that agreement.
Yet, no, I don't know whether they bought the agreement over, but the agreement we verified that regardless of any change in ownership, the agreement is valid and will stand. There'll be no change to the agreement.
And government is going to have a discussion with Chevron?
Yeah,
Anytime
definitely.
soon?
We have to meet Chevron. They came here once to meet with us when Hess had just made the decision to sell his shares to them. And I suspect now that they are going to be a partner in the consortium, then we'd have to engage them too. Again, and talk to them about our expectations of the company and get them more involved in socially responsible activities here.
Last question is on party business. You've held consultations on the 2025 manifesto. You have a date set on when you're going to launch the manifesto?
Our manifesto would be like, I won't want to say it myself, but an anti-climax, because we have spoken about 50 specific things that we intend to do that the others have now, they're just latching on to. So you would see that, but you would see more elaboration on these initiatives, how we will structure them, and then a few additions. So let me tell you, last week or the week before, I pointed out what we shared with people when they came to the consultation. So we shared a long list of things that we had already committed to. And then we add some additional things, like which you don't see here, for example, some things like animal welfare, investing in that, because that was a concern. Like SASOD came and they made a presentation there. They came to our consultation and they asked us whether we will support strengthening legislation to prevent discrimination against people based on sexual orientation. And the answer is yes, we will do that. And it would probably be reflected in our manifesto, because we don't believe that people should be denied any opportunity in Guyana because of their race, their religion, their gender, their sexual orientation, to get access to health care or education, etc. They asked about, well, they did not. I said, not gay marriage. I told Sasso this. We're not going to support that. But we will support any legislation to preventing discrimination. And they said to me, we're not even seeking that. So that is something. We don't want to discriminate against our people for education or health or jobs based on any factor whatsoever. So I'm just telling you that. That will be part of the manifesto too. We'll put that in. We strengthen animal rights, human rights, a strengthening of human rights. We have already had up there some accountability in law enforcement. That's an important issue for us, greater accountability. So we have been out there already talking about this. We got to go and put it in a document and hand people a one-page stuff to read that they can't even read or understand or answer a question on. So I anticipate we will do it in the next couple of weeks or so. That's how I see it. Yes, the formal document. Okay. In that document, what you will see, though, would be the macro layout. We'll talk about things like the vision. We will talk, and I'm even giving the others a chance so they can talk about it in their manifesto too, because they'll be launching soon. We talk about our vision. We'll talk about the macro framework. We'll talk about the key principles guiding us in each sector, what we want to achieve for our country, the goals, and then show how the promises we are making here would be consistent with achieving those goals, what we want for Guyana and all of our people, and for every community. So that's what we do, but we have been doing this a long time. The others can't. They have to come out with a formal document because nobody even knows what they... I look through, like, how could people promise free Eugene now? I see some of their, like some people still promising that free university. I look through here some of the promises made, and it's almost like I asked my staff, let me tell you what I did. I asked them to take every promise they made and go back and find where we spoke about this already as a promise. Some go back to 2 years ago, some like 6 months ago. Almost every promise they have made, we have already spoken about as committing to do. The only difference is they're saying, like, we give you $500 million every day, right? We don't do that sort of thing. But that's almost, there's nothing original, nothing unique, nothing that required like a thought process. I saw word for word extracted from documents that we already produced in government for some points. Word for word extraction. Plagiarism. And that's how we, yeah, go on.
Jar Brian, NCN News. You spoke earlier about direct import assistance to various sectors like agriculture and so on. So, like, for instance, in the next, get back in next term and so on, like, what are some of your plans?
You can say it openly next term, in the next term, yeah.
What are some of your plans for direct import assistance for other sectors? And also, what are the updates on the GT project, especially since the Linseca CH4 split?
So the thing is that the last report I gave was where we advance. We still have mid next year as the time for the completion of the project. That's still mid next year as the time. That'll not change as far as I know. But I don't track, now we're in campaign season, so I'll have to get again the report on where exactly we are there. But the other sectors, a lot, when we talk to the fishermen, they need like nets and things like that. The miners need more roads, better infrastructure in the interior. So the input could be slightly different, which makes their business easier because we've done almost everything that they wanted on the taxation side. Well, there's very little to give on the taxation side. They don't want to go back to APNU, but we've done quite a bit. Like we removed the tributous tax, we removed the VAT on machinery and equipment, and we reduced the royalty rate back, and we removed this requirement that they have to get permit to take gas into the interior and all of that sort of thing. Bring out their equipment for fitness, all of these things that were put in by APNU. So now it's more about the infrastructure in the mining areas to assist. And we may think about also, for small miners, more land. So the president was in Madhya and there were complaints that the land was given out to people through the lottery. They didn't have infrastructure to get to the land. So more access to the land for small miners, and then the possibility of, because we're now using mercury, or it's limited use now, they invest in new technology for the small miners, maybe buy the centrifugal systems that could be, they could recover even more gold from that and assist them with that. That's the kind of thing we're thinking about. Okay. Yes, Martha. Yeah, all right, you'll get to, I'll come back to you.
Good afternoon, Trina Williams, Ghana Chronicle. You spoke about the opposition attacking Afro-Guyanese earlier, but I want to shift the focus to youths overall. We've seen the party has attracted thousands of youths, and especially on social media, when they express their support for the party, they've been constantly attacked. What is your advice to these youths as we head closer to elections, and also on the topic of political intimidation and violence? I know that a party can only do so much, but from your standpoint, do you think that the ERC and the police force are executing their duties properly to deal with these matters?
So people can complain to the ERC and complain to the police. If you're being bullied by people, you just do that, especially because they have some trolls. Like if you look at APNU tends to have some real people do it. Azruddin has a series of bots and people, fake accounts controlled by his people. So if you go to one of the pages, any story, immediately thereafter you'll see like 30 comments from their side suddenly supporting that story or misleading people. So if it's negative against Azruddin, they start trying to mislead. So those are fake accounts controlled by some people. So to divert attention from the real person. So I don't think you'll get very far with those. But there are some real people too who are engaged in constant bullying of people. Report them to the police or the ERC. And yes, ERC should be doing more in this regard. I agree with you. And I say to people, it's your country. Don't let these fossils and these useless people determine your voice. You know, if you don't stand up for yourself and your country, and we allow these people from the past have no vision for Guyana whatsoever, they don't have anyone's interest at heart except getting back into power. If we allow them to inherit this land, where would we be? In my party here, the PPP, we're now training the next generation of leaders. Young people, tons of them are coming in. We're exposing them. We want them to take over the country. We want them to look like Guyana. Young Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, Amerindian leaders, so that our party could carry on its task 100 years into the future, building this country and uniting it. They're all about some fossils and going back to the past all the time. Stand up for your country and yourselves. Stand up. They have nothing to offer anyone. What are they doing? Half of them are living abroad too, in New York, etc. Somebody living over there. Some of them would love to come back home. They can't make it back home. Like, I don't know if Norman Brown still posts. But in the cold morning, when he's in front of the security services, they're doing his thing, he cussing people here in Guyana who have a bright future. A person who just done a degree or has a doctorate and choose to be the PPP, they're calling that person names. And he probably can't, doesn't even have anything to do over there. But this is what they want. For too long, they made people feel ashamed of themselves and intimidated by them. And we can't build this country this way. And so people need to stand up for themselves too. Young people too. If you want to inherit this country, you have to take charge now.
And at APNU's Bagotville rally, we saw the opposition leader criticizing the government's efforts to build a digital society and said that a large percentage of Guyanese are illiterate. How do you view these comments, and do you see this as a deliberate attempt to undermine the government's efforts with a misleading narrative?
I chose not to go back to everything that Norton says, or the Mohammeds, or one of the Dexter Todd, because it's just like, I'm hoping that sensible people in Guyana would see these comments for what they are. Like running people down all the time. So first of all, the gold scholars were waste of time for Norton. He said, they're useless, this is a program, really we should shut it down. He studied in London. So he's superior. Now you're telling me, he said, that too many Guyanese are illiterate, and therefore we may now need to go to a digital society. It is something that just running down people. The people who may even be challenged for various reasons, some of them have more common sense than Norton himself. And in Africa, which has a lower literacy rate than Guyana, or in, say, India, which has a lower literacy rate than in Guyana, they have more people part of the digital society because they're connected online. They can do digital banking in Africa through the phone. Digital banking. In India, they get their subsidies paid. They have something called an Aadhaar card. People who can't even read and write, they are connected. They get their payments into their bank accounts. Their pensioners, etc. That's part of a digital society. Digital society is about using technology to fight crime, to keep our country safe. That is using drones and drone technology to track our economic zone, protect our resources, keep the Venezuela intelligence about Venezuela. It's fed in real time to our security forces, knowing who is here in our country, all of the migrants who are here, whether they're Chinese or Venezuelans or Indians, who is here so they don't pose a threat to our people and our way of life. That's part of a digital society. Part of a digital society is making it easy for our people when they're coming home or traveling abroad, that they feel they're a citizen of this country when they don't have to go and stand in front of an immigration officer, because the document they have in their pocket or their wallet, they just take it out, an ID card, and swipe it, and they walk through. They don't have to worry about all of that. That's making our people feel that they own this country. That's what we're talking about. Oh, he's opposed to the digital society. This man is a fossil. He's a pure fossil. Remember, he was in Parliament and he said he support the prohibition. He still has these old concepts, like from his era. Like World Bank had come about self-reliance, collective self-reliance. They had these strategies that all were economic theories of the past before monetarism took over. And so he is, I listen to him like slogan, people-centered development. You know, people-centered development doesn't mean anything if you don't educate people or keep them healthy or find a job for them or have them have recreational time or keep them safe in their homes. What kind of people-centered development you're talking about? It's just the slogans. Everything is about sloganeering. And so I didn't even know he said that, but it's shocking to me. But they do this all the time on the platform. Talk about something to try to sound very smart, and it's meaningless. If you really put what they're saying under a microscope and then examine, you don't need a microscope to examine it. You could just stare at it with naked eyes and see it's nonsense.
And on the policy side, last week you spoke about placing further emphasis on physical education, and I know that one of the manifesto promises is to incorporate civic education into the school
Yes.
curriculum. But does the administration plan to incorporate entrepreneurial skills at any level for the children?
So financial literacy and entrepreneurship will be something. I told you already that Floyd Haynes has offered, and he sent me the outline of a course that we're willing to do for people on financial literacy. I have the outline. You know Floyd Haynes, who owns the merchant bank in Guyana. He's a Guyanese who got a license. And I'd asked him to do this for the PPP level. Look at the outline here. He sent it to me. This is an entire program on, so you're talking about target audience here, about saving versus investment, key investment principles, common investment options for ordinary people, starting small and planning ahead, how to use debt wisely. These are the things that he put as a part of the program already. So we already have that. This is not going to be in the manifesto, but it's outline of a course that we intend politically. I wanted to do this as PPP, and he promised to help me in the PPP do this, to go across the country and do that, but the government will be doing it in a bigger scale. We'll do it as a party, but we want the government to do this on a bigger scale, where we go into the communities and we meet with the nurses, and we do a training program, not just in school. School would have to do it maybe at a different level, entrepreneurial training, but I'm talking about meeting with the nurses and doing this program with them, meeting with the soldiers, meeting with the policemen, meeting the rice farmers and say, why are you, like one time I met someone and he had a hard time, a rice farmer, and he said to me, I have like 10 drums of fuel at my home. And I said, how far you live from the gas station? And he lives about 5 minutes away from a gas station. I asked him, why are you keeping 10 gallons of fuel, 10 barrels of fuel at your home for the tractor? And he does this for months. That's inventory you don't need to keep, because he thinks about the shortage period when we had fuel shortages. You don't need to keep that. That's money locked up there in gasoline or diesel that he doesn't need. He could go use a drum and then go and fill up back at a gas station or when he needs it. So little things like these help. You know, people have a small plot and then they want to own a tractor. And the tractor sits there for 300 days of the year without working, because only 65 days it can work based on the plot size they have and the work in the field and the size of the field. So how do we help these people? Like through a tractor pool. But that's, you have your money tied up there, you have to pay your pay back the loan on the tractor. So meeting with them too, meeting with the fishermen, meeting with the young kids in Linden, or the Amerindian kids in Mabaruma or Maruka, or people in Madia, and talking to them right there. How do you, if you get some money, how do you invest it wisely? How do you acquire debt? We were talking about the zero interest loans now, but how do you acquire debt? And a person like Floyd Haynes, we have a lot of other people who have offered to help too, but Floyd is, he runs a bank, he owns a bank now, a merchant bank. And so this is the sort of thing we're looking to the future for. Serious business, talking to our people about investing their money, because they're going to get more money. They're going to earn more, they're going to save more. We want them to earn the maximum amount from their savings now. How to invest their savings so they can make more money. And this is not for middle class or upper class. This is for everyone, including the kids who are on Leopold Street. We want that done there too. So that's what we're pushing. So maybe not necessarily in the school curriculum, but generally financial inclusion, financial literacy. We already talk about how we will create, like the fertilizer plant and so many other places, investment vehicles so small people can invest their money and get a guaranteed rate of return. Everyone, the reporter, the policeman, the sugar worker can put $100,000 in and get a guaranteed rate of return that is 3 times what he gets at the bank if he puts the money. And it's underwritten by government, so it's safe. That is something that we are looking at.
And there's also the commitment of protecting women and children against sexual and domestic violence. And while since assuming office, the government has enacted several initiatives to target this, there are still some disparities, especially in rural communities, when it comes to accessing and reporting these acts of violence. How does the government plan on addressing these disparities going forward?
So there are several things we have to do. We have the laws. We passed several laws from the days I was president, protecting children and women. We established, when I was president, the Child Protection Agency. We need to put more resources into these bodies, hire more staff. They have to be vigilant and 24 hours. This is a 24 hours thing. This is not an 8 to 4 kind of business. Secondly, we have to empower the NGOs. Child Link and Blossom Inc., these are 2 organizations that work in this area. There are several others. We have increased their subvention since we got into office massively, because they do the forensic interviews with the children first, and then they present those to the police. That's the second way. Thirdly, the president has been speaking a lot about involvement of the religious community. We believe that religious leaders from all the faiths can play a big role. The church can play a better role, or the temple or the mosque can play a better role in looking out for people in the communities. If they get more resources, we're committed to giving them the resources to doing this, because not just the government. We must create an environment in each community and each workplace that is intolerant to abuse of children and women. It is a climate that we have to create in our country, intolerance to this, so that everyone, gets they have a sense of revulsion when it happens in a society. Too often, people are numb to it. So what they do is you hear it, you see it in the newspaper, it goes off. A person gets raped, and people just scroll past it to look at, painting a, not fingernail, because that looks a bit sexist, but something else. I mean, men and women do this. We must feel angry about these things too. And then want action, demand action from the police, the judiciary, and everyone else. When we take cases there that people don't get off, like they get off free from every one of these things, Some of them, like people who should be locked up, like pedophiles and all these people, sometimes they come out, they get a no sentence or a minor sentence. That's the sort of thing. It's that society must become intolerant. So it's a societal thing. It's not a government thing. It's a societal thing. We must all share that. And it's not about, often people they do it on the basis of religion or race or anything. We must all, Guyanese thing. It must be a Guyanese thing. Our women and children must be safe. That's how we intend to approach it. So I said three things that I can think of right now. More resources, 24 hours, the state looking at this, supporting the NGOs more, and thirdly, getting religious people. And then, of course, working in society to change mindsets.
Yeah.
Yes, Marcel.
The Demerara Harbor Bridge project, did you say that there's a likelihood that it's going to be delayed before August 31st?
Yeah, I said I was hoping it could be open as a general secretary of the PPP, but nothing. We're not pushing people to meet that deadline if it's not safe. We want it to be safe. People see it being built already. I'd love if it could be open beyond the 31st of August. Not beyond, by the 31st of August. But if it can't, and it's not safe to open it, because they haven't finished it, we're not going to tell them, do a cock job on the welding just to get it done there. Let them take their time and do this bridge properly. That has to be there for the next 100 years, so we don't want that to happen.
So the question was really to government. Did the Ministry of Public Works signal that there is a likelihood that this project can go past the August 31st deadline?
I don't know, I haven't tracked it, but they had told me that they can finish it before August 31st. That was what the ministry said. Okay? I expressed the hope as General Secretary of the party that it be done by that date. But I said also, we as a party not calling Public Works to say get it done at all costs and compromise safety and anything else. We want it done properly, and we're hoping it would still meet the deadline.
And has government or heard any feedback from the Ministry of Public Works or from the public on the issue of load testing for the bridge?
Oh, that's done. I saw a big issue about that. And that's a routine thing. I don't know why the Chinese, the contractors have to do this. We have a supervision firm there. That's a routine thing. When they design a structure like that, they have to design it with certain specification in mind, which includes the weight that the bridge can take and all of that. So I guess they have to test that it's there. So they have to build the concrete slabs to a certain specification. If the slabs are built to a certain specification, then they can take the load. If the installation is done in a particular manner, it can take the load. So once they meet all of the specs, then it's a mute issue. then they'd still have to drive over the bridge and test it and all of that with the vehicles. But if all the components are built according to spec, which is what the supervision firm has to do, and the Chinese themselves would have to do, then, and they're installed in a proper way, then it's a mute issue.
And
Mute issue.
the final question, final,
Right.
was
It's a
you made reference earlier to the PNC selling of their shares for their funding. What is the PPPC's campaign fund amount?
Oh,
And
I didn't, why would I tell you that? Why would I tell you that now? We collect donations, it all gets paid into the party, people collect a receipt. That's what I'm telling you now. I don't know, Norton doesn't seem to have the same process. He gets the blank checks and all of that. I'm telling you about process. We don't spend too much money on campaign. A lot of our campaign is based on the foot soldiers of the party. We do a lot of our work on the basis of the strength of our activists and volunteerism. A lot of them volunteer their time. They don't go on, we don't pay activists to walk the streets and go to people. We may give the polling agents some a stipend, but we don't pay them. Let me tell you further that almost all of the meetings, we have hundreds of meetings that are going on now, hundreds across the country, small meetings in the villages themselves. Those are organized entirely by the structures on the ground. We may supply the speakers sometimes, but we don't even fund those meetings. They, through their donations in the villages and stuff like that. We have raised quite a bit of money through our fundraisers. We've had several good, well-attended fundraisers. You've seen them. So we raise quite a bit of money. Freedom House, we've always been a party that has focused on our activists too. Like, for example, if you look at the video with some of the people in Linden, these girls, you would see them, they bought their own cloth, they're sewing flags. We have some flags that just came in, so they don't have to slow. It was stuck in a container, so the flags are here now, so they get a breather. But when our flags got delayed in a container in Jamaica, our activists just, without any prompting from the party in Linden and all the places, they just started sewing themselves. And you see these girls having a good time in Linden, they're cooking some food, they're sewing, they're playing Bob Marley music and other things around the place. That's how we work as a party. It's a different kind of tone in the PPP. The kind of people from outside don't understand the camaraderie. And that's why APNU has had to and win to pay a lot of people maybe. So they always believe the same thing, that the PPP. We have a ton of volunteers. People walk off the streets and come in here every day to say, how can I assist? How can I give my time? Without regard to get, no payment. So it's a different structure. So I'm not going to tell you my budget now. I'll clear that with the central committee of the party first before you know about it, yes. But
you have bookkeeping practices for your donors, though.
yes, because they get a receipt. They all get a receipt from when you pay into the party your donation. You go to a person who is not the general secretary or the executive of the party. We have staff downstairs. You make your payment, you collect your receipt. That's how you get money when you come to Freedom House. You don't even need to see the general secretary. Many people don't come to see me. They take their donations in directly. Yes, and so that's how it works in the party. Go on.
Dr. Jagdeo, Michael Rodriguez for Daybreak News. I I know a lot of people have been doing polls, and there's much speculation out there as it relates to who will get what. Your party has a robust structure in monitoring what goes on the ground. Is there an expectation that you are looking at, that you're willing to make public in terms of seats as a result of the effort that you have put in the last 5 years? There must be some expectations, and people are looking to know what are we to aspire for. Can you tell us what is your expectations?
You know, I've been around politics for a while, and I don't, you know, you can hype crowds up at rallies and tell them what you expect. So in Berbice, I said they got 40-something thousand votes the last time. That's PPP votes. I expect them to get up to 55,000 votes. And it's a tough task because when you look at the number of active voters and stuff like that, they have to work very hard there, but I have great faith in the activists and in the people of that region too. Because what are they gonna go to? Can't go to APNU because APNU practically killed off Berbice. And then the other man has no plan whatsoever outside of saving himself. So that's what I do. I'm not one to say we want 60% or 70% of the seats or whatever. We win the elections, we'd win the elections, and we'd win it handsomely. And that's what I'm saying. We're working, we don't count our chickens before they're hatched like the other parties are sharing positions and stuff before. All of them have shared out positions, including Win. You saw they told a girl, I saw a letter from somebody across the region, she tried to withdraw, and they told her you'd be a councillor. And she said, I don't want to be part of the party. I thought I was applying for a job. You know, they told her you'd be a councillor. So you were signing up for a job, and then she ended up on their list of candidates. Misleading people. We don't do that sort of thing. We don't count our chickens before they hatch. We working hard on the ground. And all of those polls that you see are a lot of speculation. A lot of speculation out there. Most of them are not scientific. And a lot of them are planted by different groups, including the Win people. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.